She exhaled and answered before the second ring. You left early, Zuri said, without preamble. This was Zuri's way. No introduction, no buffer, like stepping directly from a doorway into the middle of the room. You noticed. Please. I notice everything. Also, Elijah texted me 17 minutes ago specifically to describe your face during the salmon course. He said, and I quote, our sister looked like she was calculating how many laws it would take to make this dinner illegal. Amara laughed despite herself. It came out small and genuine, the way laughter did when it surprised you. He is not wrong. The salmon was overcooked. The salmon was not the issue. No, Amara agreed. It was not. She could hear music on Zuri's end. Something slow and layered, old-school R&B, the kind that played in the background of every meaningful conversation her sister had ever had. The clink of ice. Zuri was still out somewhere on the south side because Zuri believed that life was meant to be inhabited fully and that going home early was a failure of imagination. They were, Amara had always thought, the same woman running two very different programs. How is the party? Amara asked, loud and joyful. I am celebrating your promotion on your behalf, since you have apparently decided to celebrate it with sparkling water and whatever emotional territory you go to when you leave rooms early. I was tired. You are never just tired. Are you in the kitchen? Yes. Are you looking at those roses? Amara turned away from the roses. No, you are absolutely looking at those roses. Zuri knew her the way sisters know each other when they have grown up in the same wound. Not always peacefully, not without friction, but with a specific intimacy that comes from having shared a silence no one else in the world understood the exact shape of. Adila. The name arrived like a hand on the shoulder. Zuri called her by her middle name when she meant the conversation to be real. It was the name their father had given her. I am okay, Amara said. You're quiet. That is not the same thing. I am tired. Also not the same thing. A pause. Then, softly, what is going on? Amara walked toward the office at the far end of the condo, the room where unfinished things lived. She stood in the doorway and looked at the albums. I keep thinking about the dinner, she said, which was partially true. About being in that room and everyone saying the right things, and she stopped. Tried again. Do you ever feel applauded and invisible at the same time? Zuri was quiet for a moment. Yes, she said carefully. I also feel like that is not actually what tonight is about for you. Amara crouched and pulled the first album from the shelf. I opened the albums again last week, she said. Zuri said nothing. She was listening the way she listened when a conversation had arrived somewhere real. Completely. Without preparation for her own response. I look at his face and I think I should feel something specific. Anger. Grief. Some kind of resolution. Instead, I feel the question. The same question I have been carrying for as long as I can remember. She opened the album. I am looking at the albums, she said. I know, Zuri said. He was so young in these photographs. Younger than me now. He had this whole life ahead of him, and she pressed her lips together. He left it. All of it. He left us. Yes. And I am 42 years old, and I still do not know why. The rain against the windows had softened into something more persistent and less dramatic. The city moved through it without complaint. Chicago did not stop for weather. Come to brunch Sundays, he said. Zuri Elijah is making eggs. I am making French toast. You are bringing yourself, which is all I am asking. That sounds like a summons. It is a summons. Where something that suggests emotional availability. I am always emotionally available. Adila. Fine. That outfit does not exist. It exists. You have simply not allowed yourself to buy it. He said he was coming back, Amara said. Quietly. Not really to Zuri. To the photograph. To the child in the yellow dress still standing at that gate. I know, Zuri said. I am going to let you go, Amara said, closing the album. Sunday. I will be there. Good. And Amara, you are allowed to want answers. Even now, even at 42 years old, there is no age limit on needing to understand. She looked at the closed album in her lap. I would not even know where to begin, she said. And Zuri said, without hesitation, with the simple authority of someone who had been thinking about this longer than she had been asked, begin where he ended.
After midnight, I sat on the floor of my office with both albums spread open around me. I sat the way I never sit anywhere else, without purpose, without an outcome I was managing toward, simply inside the evidence of a life that had been interrupted before I was old enough to understand what continuity meant. I turned the pages slowly. There he was, Joshua Oluwadare Ogundele, younger in this photograph than I am now, mid-30s, a wide-lapelled suit that was very 1980s. He was grinning, not posing, actually grinning. The kind of expression that catches itself in the middle of something real. Beside him, my mother Bernice stood in a yellow dress, one hand at her waist, her face carrying the beauty of a woman trying not to look too pleased with herself and failing. They had been happy once, or something that looked enough like happiness to be photographed. I turned the page. My father alone in a park, looking slightly left of the camera, caught mid-looking, mid-becoming, mid-something I will never know the name of. I have a theory about that photograph, one I have never shared with anyone, not even Zuri. I believe the expression on his face is not absence. It is not the look of a man already gone in his mind. It is the look of a man who had not yet decided, who was still, in that captured moment, balanced on the edge of something, and had not yet fallen in one direction or the other. I do not know whether this interpretation is a mercy I invented or a truth I recognized. I have sat with both possibilities for years. I had inherited his face. This was what my mother told me once, a single time, not tenderly, factually, in the way Bernice delivers the things that cost her something. You have his face, Amara, not his choices, his face. I have held that sentence for 20 years. I turned another page. A woman in traditional dress, a gele tied high and proud, a wrapper in burgundy and gold. Posture so erect and dignified, it seemed to hold the photograph up. Cheekbones like my father's, eyes that were partially my own. Leah Oluwatui Ogundele, my grandmother. A woman I have never heard speak, never been held by. A woman who had, as far as I had always believed, lived and likely died, not knowing I existed. And beside her, a man, older, broader, carrying himself with the settled weight of someone who had been patriarch long enough to have forgotten it was a performance and simply become it. Stephen Ogundele, Oda, Akure, Ondo State, Nigeria. I had spent my whole life carrying the weight of people who had no idea I existed.
There is a photograph she has come to hate, with a particular hatred reserved for things that are true and painful and impossible to put away. The airport. Joshua near the gate, his carry-on beside him, his shoulders carrying the posture of a man who has made a decision and is living in the moment before it becomes permanent. Bernice 3 feet away, holding herself with the rigid grace of a woman who has resolved not to give him the satisfaction of watching her come apart. And Amara, 4 years old, in a yellow dress with white socks and shoes that had butterflies on the buckles, because this was what she had wanted to wear, and Bernice had let her choose, standing with her face tilted up toward her father, clutching the stuffed rabbit he had given her 2 weeks before, waiting. Even in the photograph, the waiting is visible. The absolute trust of a child who has not yet learned that some things you wait for never arrive. She remembered the smell of the airport, not the words, not the light, the smell. And then her father kneeling in front of her, hands on her shoulders, voice lower than usual. Adeola, you must remember who you are. She had nodded solemnly. She had thought he meant, be good while I am gone. She had been good. She had been better than good. She had been exceptional. Howard Kellerman said so, and he had still not come back.
At some point, I reached the back of the second album. In the rear sleeve, the flat plastic pocket designed to hold documents or extra prints, something had been tucked. I almost missed it. The sleeve was worn to near translucence at its edges, and what was inside had been pressed flat for long enough that it had taken on the yellowing of aged plastic. An envelope. I pulled it free. Thin paper, foreign texture, the kind that had traveled through postal systems in particular humidity. The flap had been sealed once, long ago, and the gum had given up its grip at the corner. My name was not on it. My father's name was Joshua Oluwadare Ogundele. And in the upper left corner, in handwriting I did not recognize, careful and small, the penmanship of someone for whom writing was deliberate, a return address, Akure, Nigeria. I sat on the floor with the envelope in my hands and did not move for a long time. Outside, the city breathed its wet and indifferent breath. Inside the envelope, held between thin foreign paper and decades of silence, something was waiting. I set it carefully on the shelf above the albums where I could see it in the lamp's light. I was not ready yet, but I was closer than I had ever been. And for the first time in as long as I could remember, the question I had been carrying did not feel only like weight. It felt, faintly, like a door.
She had never been afraid of a door. She had walked through every difficult one that had presented itself in 42 years, every professional threshold, every hard conversation, every room that had not initially been built for her. She was not afraid of this one either. She was, if anything, more ready for it than she had ever been for anything. The question had been preparing her for this her whole life. Without her knowing it was preparation. She accomplished everything she was supposed to accomplish. She built the career. She earned the room. She even smiled through it. She came home to dying roses and a glass of sparkling water on the 11th floor of a life she built from the outside in. And at midnight, on the floor of her office, she found an envelope that had been hidden in an old photo album for years. A thin envelope with her father's name on it and a return address in Akure, Nigeria. Someone was waiting on the other side of that paper. Someone with careful handwriting and a deliberate hand. And Amara has spent 42 years asking a question that is now asking her back. Episode 2, What We Each Became. Subscribe so you do not miss it. The echoes of my name, every chapter, every truth, right here.